The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air as I sat across from Lorraine. 12 years of marriage, a life built together, and there she was, sliding divorce papers across the table as if they were a lunch menu. She had a small, almost satisfied smirk on her face, like she'd just won some huge victory. I wasn't ready for this. No, not the papers, not that look, not the way she sat back in her chair with a kind of smug certainty. That was new to me. Even after all these years, she'd always been sharp, but this felt different. The sunlight caught her golden hair as she sipped her mimosa, her composure seemingly unaffected by the storm brewing at our table. Next to her sat Carter, her new boyfriend, a man whose muscles seemed as inflated as a shiny watch, which he kept positioning so everyone could see it. He smiled at me like there was some joke I hadn't yet grasped. The papers sat there, neat and white, the final page bearing my name in bold letters. I didn't reach for them immediately. I just stared at the papers and then at her, trying to understand when she had become this person. A dozen years of memories, a house, a life, and now she was tossing it all away like stale bread. I could almost feel the waitress hovering nearby, undoubtedly curious about the chill that had settled over our table. Lorraine didn't seem to care. She just kept that smirk, as though she was waiting for me to react, maybe to shout, to beg, to make a scene. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I took a breath and calmly asked, "You're really doing this here?" The clink of plates and cutlery filled the space between us, but Lorraine just shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. "It's as nice a spot as any," she said, using my full name, Miles, instead of any of the terms of endearment she used back when things were good. Now I was just Miles, as if I were some stranger from her past. Carter chuckled, his hand casually reaching for his coffee as if to show off, his actions louder than his words. I wanted to knock that ridiculous watch off his wrist, but I stayed still, letting it all sink in. The papers had her signature, clear and confident, the same way she always signed things. She'd planned this. She'd been planning it for a while. I thought back to the last few years, to how she'd been staying out later, to how she stopped asking about my day, to how her eyes rolled every time I talked about work. I had written it off as stress, as just a phase, but now it was clear this wasn't a phase. She was done. And Carter, well, he was a lifeboat, what she had chosen. I wondered what he had that I didn't. Money? Confidence? A louder laugh? Whatever it was enough to make her think she could replace everything we had built. I picked up the pen the waitress had left beside the bill and signed the receipt. Pancakes, eggs, mimosas, everything that felt so normal was now a bizarre reminder of the morning. I pushed the receipt back across the table toward her, meeting her gaze. "See you in court," I said, my voice steady. For a second, her smirk faltered. Carter shifted in his seat, unsure of how to react now that I wasn't playing along. I stood, tossed some cash on the table, more than enough to cover the bill, and walked out without a second glance. The door's bell jingled behind me. But I didn't need to look back. Lorraine thought she had caught me off guard, thought she could embarrass me, but she didn't know me as well as she thought. She never really had. I'd spent years building something bigger than she could ever comprehend. And if she wanted to walk away with Carter and his flashy watch, that was fine. She'd find out soon enough what she was really leaving behind. I reached my car, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter as I started planning. The divorce papers still lay on the table, but in my mind, this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And by the time they realized that, it would be too late. "I told you everything," Braden said, his voice tight with anxiety. "You didn't disclose that he ran the firm. You just said you were married to him." Lorraine's face drained of color, then flushed with anger. I didn't know he owned it. How was I supposed to know? Her voice cracked, and Carter shifted uncomfortably beside her, looking at her like she had just turned into someone else. Judge Calloway didn't flinch. "So, she neglected to report a potential conflict. Your firm failed to notice it. That's enough for this representation to be rejected. Mr. Knox's withdrawal stands." She tapped her pen sharply, as final as a hammer's blow. Lorraine slammed her fist on the table, her frustration boiling over. "I didn't lie. I picked your firm because it was the best, not because of him." Her voice cracked with anger. The bailiff took a step forward, but Judge Calloway waved him off. "Mrs. Caldwell, control yourself, or I'll have you removed," she said firmly. I leaned back in my chair, feeling Jules's elbow nudge me with a grin. Elias jotted something down on his notepad, as calm as ever. Across the aisle, Lorraine was unraveling. I could see it in her eyes. She was starting to realize that she had underestimated me completely. She thought she had hired the best, the unbeatable firm, and it had been her downfall. She didn't know it, but that firm was mine. I'd bought it years ago, when she'd still been smiling at me across the dinner table. I hadn't told her, not because I was hiding anything, but because I didn't need to. She had never been interested in my work, never asked for the details. Now, those details were coming back to haunt her. Braden stood, trying to salvage the situation. "Your Honor, this puts my client at a serious disadvantage. We request a continuance to secure new counsel." Judge Calloway didn't even look at him. "Request noted." Mrs. Caldwell picked her representation, and she'll live with the consequences. Today, we proceed with what's on the table. Braden slumped back into his seat, defeated. Lorraine turned to me, her voice low and venomous. "You planned this, didn't you? You set me up." I met her gaze without flinching. "No, Lorraine, you set yourself up." Her expression flickered. Just for a moment, a crack appeared in her smirk. She turned away, muttering something to Braden, though I couldn't hear it. Carter leaned in, whispering, "So what now?" "She's got no lawyer." Lorraine snapped at him. "Shut up, Carter." He recoiled, looking confused. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The judge called Elias up to present my case. Calmly, he laid out the facts. Our marriage was over. I had provided for her, and her accusations of mistreatment were exaggerated. There were no dramatic moves, just the truth. Lorraine didn't have much left to argue. Without her lawyer scrambling to back her up, she was vulnerable. The judge turned to her. "Mrs. Caldwell, you can represent yourself for the remainder of this hearing, or we can adjourn and reconvene another time. It's your choice." Lorraine didn't respond right away. She glared at me, then at the judge, and finally back at me again. After a moment, she muttered, "I need time." The judge nodded. "Very well. Hearing adjourned until tomorrow, 9 a.m. Get your house in order." She hammered her gavel, and the room exhaled. I stood up, adjusting my jacket, as Jules slapped me on the back. "That was beautiful, man," he said, chuckling. I didn't smile, just nodded and walked toward the door. Lorraine was still sitting there, her eyes burning into me as I passed. I didn't look back. She would figure it out soon enough. Outside, the courthouse was buzzing with people rushing by. Attorneys on phones, clerks carrying files. But for me, the world had slowed down. Lorraine was still inside, probably yelling at Braden or Carter, but it didn't matter. I had flipped the tables on her. Her plan was falling apart, and now she had nothing. No lawyer, no strategy, just a mess of her own making. Jules nudged me as we stepped down the stairs. "Did you see her face when the judge shut her down? She's going to lose it." I nodded, keeping my focus ahead. Yep, she didn't see it coming. The March air hit me, sharp and cold. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, hands in my pockets, taking a deep breath.